A wall of stone floated in the black of space, turning slowly in the light of a distant sun. It was not a planet or a moon, but the shattered heart of something much older than both the crew of the Andromeda Ascendant saw it first as a faint radar echo in a dead zone of space, a place no one had charted in any official record. Captain Merivale leaned forward in her chair, watching the holographic display. As the shape resolved into a jagged, hollow asteroid, the scanners pulsed and the readings came back. It was cold, lifeless, and impossibly ancient. The ship's pilot. Joran tilted his head and squinted at the numbers. "That can't be right," he said in a low voice to the composition. "Matches nothing in known space, not even in the old Alliance." Archives Mara ordered a visual feed. The whole cameras magnified the image, and a shadowed surface came into view, carved deep into the asteroid's skin, where lines and curves precise and deliberate. They glowed faintly, as if remembering a light that had long since gone out. The lines formed clusters and spirals that wrapped across the entire visible side, and into the crack sits a map whispered. Ilara, the ship's science officer, her voice carried both awe and unease. "I think it's a star." Map. The crew gathered around the main display as Ilara overlaid the carving. With the ship's current stellar charts, the match was imperfect but familiar. The lines marked systems and constellations older than human history. Then she paused, her brow furrowed. "One system," here she tapped. "A glowing node does not exist in our galaxy's current star field. According to this, it should be right here." She highlighted a position in deep space, but the official charts showed only emptiness. Joran let out a short laugh. "Maybe they just made a mistake. People do that, even ancient cartographers." Mara shook her head. "No, there's precision here. Every other star aligns perfectly except this one, and this missing system is marked differently, brighter, larger, almost as if it's the focus of the entire map." Ilara nodded. "I think this map is older than the galaxy itself." The crew fell silent at that. The thought was absurd. The galaxy was billions of years old, yet the carbon dating from the asteroid's outer layer suggested an age even greater, something from before the Milky Way had fully formed. They launched a drone to scan deeper as it passed into the asteroid's hollow interior. Its lights cut through the dust, revealing more carvings. The walls inside were covered in symbols, not just stars, but creatures, ships, and swirling patterns that looked like collapsing suns. Ilara recorded every image, sending them to the ship's core for analysis. The AI designated them as language fragments, but none matched the databases. Halfway through the scan, the drone's signal stuttered. Static hissed across the speakers. The video feed glitched for half a second. The carvings seemed to move as if rearranging themselves. The AI spoke for the first time. Ilar's voice, flat and calm. "Coordinates found. Charting route." Mara frowned. "Route to where?" The AI applied. "To the missing system, according to stellar drift. The coordinates are in the silent sector." Every head turned. The silence was not on most maps officially. It was just uncharted space, but everyone in deep space work had heard stories. No transmissions ever escaped it. No ships returned from within its borders. Tension in the command deck thickened. Joran's hands tightened on the controls. "Were not going in there, Mara." But Mara kept her eyes on the glowing node in the hologram. Something in her gut told her this was bigger than a ghost story. Ilara broke the silence. "I've cross-checked with alien records from 3 different civilizations. They all have myths of a vanished world. They call it the First Light, the place where the oldest races began. All of them say it disappeared without a trace millions of years ago. This map shows exactly where it was." The Andromeda Ascendant drifted alongside the asteroid. The exterior lights caught something new, a small panel on the surface, smooth and darker than the rest. Mara ordered a closer look. The drone moved in, brushing aside a thin layer of dust. The panel opened with a soundless click, revealing a crystal sphere. It pulsed faintly in the light. The moment it was exposed, the ship's systems flickered. Screens went black for a heartbeat, then returned, showing not the asteroid, not the stars outside, but the missing world, spinning blue and green in perfect clarity. No one spoke. They watched as the image slowly rotated. Vast oceans glittered under sunlight. Continents spread like familiar but not identical patterns, and then just as suddenly it vanished, replaced by static. The AI announced visual anomaly ended recording. Complete. Mara exhaled slowly, turning to Alara. That was real, wasn't it? Alara's eyes were wide. Yes. And our sensors confirmed the energy signature came from deep space. Exactly. Where the coordinates point, the strange thing is the readings suggest that world is not in R. Timera's pulse quickened. This wasn't just exploration. Any more, something was calling them. She could feel it in the air like the hum before a storm. She thought about the alien myths, the first light, the silence, and the fact that the asteroid had been sitting here untouched, waiting for someone to find it her. Someone in the crew muttered, "Maybe it's a trap." Mara glanced at them. Maybe, but maybe. It's a chance to find something no human has ever seen. Joran shook his head. You want to go in there based on a ghost planet that just blinked into our monitors for 10 seconds? Yes. Mara said simply, "We prepare the ship tonight, Alara. You keep decoding. Those symbols, if that world really is the first light, then something or someone erased it from history. And I want to know why the asteroid slowly turned outside the viewport." The glowing lines of the map shifting in faint light, almost as if they were watching the humans back. As the Andromeda Ascendant moved away, the AI repeated the new coordinates, twice its voice, just slightly lower than before hours. Later in her quarters, Mara replayed the image of the world, the colors, the shapes, the feeling that it was not gone but hidden somewhere just out of reach. She stared at it until it flickered again for the briefest moment. She thought she saw movement in one of its shining cities, a single flash of light from a tall spire, as if something there was watching her too. When she finally closed the display, the AI whispered into the quiet of the room, "Captain, the missing world is no longer missing." Mara froze. The words echoed in her mind, like a warning or an invitation, and she could not tell which one it was. The Andromeda Ascendant slipped into the edge of the silence like a ship sliding under black water. The stars outside dimmed one by one, as if they were being swallowed. The sensors showed nothing but empty space, yet every member of the crew felt the same pressure in their chest, a heaviness that made the air taste different. Captain Merave sat forward in her chair, eyes fixed on the main viewport. The ship's lights cut through the darkness, but revealed only more dark. The pilot kept his hands steady on the controls, though his jaw was tight. "This is wrong," he muttered. "Space doesn't look like this." Mara didn't answer. She had heard the stories of this place told in mess halls and training camps, each one ending the same way, with a ship that vanished without a trace. The silence was a region no one could explain. No gravity anomalies, no radiation storms, nothing measurable yet. No one came back. Lara, the science officer, leaned over her console, reading the streams of data. "We still have power, but the comms are dead," she said flatly. "All outgoing signals are bouncing back. It's like the whole sector is wrapped in a mirror." Mara gave a sharp nod. "No one panic. Stay focused. We find the coordinates we see." "What's there then?" "We get out simple enough," Joran let out a dry laugh. "Simple writers." Passed without a single reading changing. The asteroid map still glowed in the hologram feeding them a steady route through nothing. Then the ship's AI spoke. In its calm tone, "Object detected distance, 10,000 kilometers, size estimate, 3 meters. Moving slowly, the crew leaned toward the display. The object appeared as a faint outline drifting in the dark. Mara ordered visual feed. The camera zoomed, and the shape came into view. It was a sphere, metallic, scarred with age, and covered in markings almost identical to those carved into the asteroid. Alara frowned. "It's a probe," she said, "but not one I've seen before. It could be millions of years old." Joran adjusted course to bring them closer. The probe rotated slowly, then without warning its surface split open like a flower blooming in slow motion. A thin beam of light shot directly at their ship. The alarms blared, the shields flared with blue fire, and the beams scattered into thousands of points of light that swirled around them. The AI's voice was different now, lower, registering unauthorized scan. Mara's grip on the armrest tightened. "Shut it down, Joran." But before he could react, the probe moved faster than seemed possible. Slamming into the outer hull, the ship shuddered. Elara's console went dark, then lit again with strange symbols streaming across the screen. They weren't from the ship's language systems. They were from the map. The symbols rearranged into what looked like a star system, and then a single blinking point. Coordinates updated. The AI said the missing world is ahead to ours. Mara ordered the probe release. The ship's magnetic clamps disengaged, and the sphere drifted away, vanishing back into the dark there. Crew sat in silence for several minutes until Alara broke it. I think that probe was alive, or at least it had its own mind. It wasn't attacking us. It was making sure we saw those coordinates. Joran shook his head. Maybe it's a warning, not an invitation. Mara stared at the blinking point on the display, wondering which one of them was right. As they drew closer, the space outside began to change. Faint ripples moved through the darkness like waves on invisible water sometimes. The ripples bent the light of distant stars, making them twist and shimmer. Sensors recorded fluctuations in time itself, seconds, stretched or compressed by fractions, just enough for the human brain to notice. Mara glanced at her wrist. Chrono, the seconds weren't lining up anymore. Lara's voice cut through the tense air. I'm detecting massive energy. Surges ahead. If I had to guess, I'd say it's some kind of dimensional distortion. The ship slowed as the surges grew stronger. A faint hum started somewhere deep in the hull, a vibration. They could feel through their boots. The AI began playing. Low static on every speaker without being told to. Joran smacked the panel. Turn that off. But the static didn't stop. Instead, the noise began to form patterns, pulses that almost sounded like voices. Mara leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Record that. Alara isolated the sound, looped it, played it again, and this time the crew heard it clearly, words in a language none of them recognized yet. The tone felt almost human. They passed another drifting object. This time a torn piece of metal larger than the ship, its surface blackened, as though scorched by impossible heat. The edges were smooth, not jagged, as if the metal had melted in space. Alara scanned it. It's from a ship, she said. Not one of ours, maybe 1,000 years old, maybe older. Joran muttered, maybe it's from one of the ships that came here and never came back. The hum in the hull grew stronger, as if the silence itself was alive and breathing. Then the sensors caught it, a faint outline in the dark, like a shadow on a shadow. The missing world materializing in ghostly form. It wasn't fully there, not yet. The oceans shimmered like oil. The continents flickered between shapes. Some the crew recognized from earlier scans, others alien. The AI spoke again, voice colder now. We have reached the coordinates. The lost world is no longer missing. The ghostly planet pulsed with faint light, then vanished, leaving empty space where it had been. Joran swore under his breath, it's playing with us. Alara's hands flew over the console. I think it's phasing between timelines. It exists and doesn't exist at the same time. Mara stood and faced the crew. This is what we came for. We follow it wherever it goes. Before anyone could argue, the ship's lights dimmed. Alarms screamed. The AI's voice cut through emergency power loss, source unknown. Mara shouted for status reports. Lara's screen showed a spike in spatial distortion, then a sudden drop to zero, like something had drained it all away. Joran tried to stabilize the ship, but the controls were sluggish. The static returned louder now, almost urgent, and the strange voices repeated the same pattern over and over. Then the main display lit with an image none of them had seen before. A city stretching across a continent, towers of glass and metal reaching into clouds that swirled in unnatural colors, streets, empty lights glowing in windows, but no movement anywhere. The AI confirmed live feed from target location, the lost world. The crew leaned closer to the image and felt a chill run down their spines. Something about it felt wrong. The lights in the city began to blink one by one, in a pattern matching the pulses in the static. Mara whispered to herself, it's talking to us. Joran turned sharply. Maybe it's calling us to land. Mara didn't answer because she knew he might be right. The image flickered again, the city replaced by an endless black void filled with thousands of tiny lights moving in swarms. Like living constellations, the swarm turned toward the camera, and then the feed cut to static. The AI spoke again, this time in perfect, unaccented English. Welcome home, Captain Vey. Mara froze. No one had told the AI to say that. No one had programmed it to know her name, like that. The ship steadied itself as if guided by invisible hands and began moving toward the planet's last known location. Mara's mind raced. Something on that world knew her, or knew someone like her, from long before she was born. Either way, they were being pulled deeper into the silence, and she could feel in her bones that whatever waited there would not let them go. Easily, the Andromeda Ascendant broke through a layer of darkness, so thick it felt almost solid, The view outside changed in an instant. The stars snapped back into sight. Brighter, sharper, and floating before them was the world they had been chasing. It hung in the void like a jewel, turning slowly in the light of a pale sun. Its oceans were deep green instead of blue. Its clouds carried streaks of gold, and its countenance shimmered as if coated in glass. Every sensor insisted the planet was real and solid, yet the readings also claimed it had no all measurable life forms. Captain Marave stared at it, her hands resting on the arms of her chair. The world looked alive yet dead at the same time. Joran spoke softly. "This is it, the missing world, the one no one should be able to find." Alara checked the sensors again. Every city, every structure is empty, but look at the energy readings. The entire planet is running on some kind of power grid like a machine. Mara nodded slowly, prepare for descent. The ship entered the thin atmosphere without turbulence, but the moment they dipped below the clouds, the light changed. It dimmed into a strange golden twilight, even though the sun still shone above. The air was thick but breathable. The ground below spread into forests and wide lakes that reflected the golden sky. Then cities appeared on the horizon, tall spires twisting like grown. Crystal towers of black stone and silver metal glimmered in the light, each one perfectly preserved. They touched down on a wide plaza at the edge of a city. The surface beneath them was smooth as glass and reflected the ship's hull like a mirror. The landing gear made no sound when it touched down. Mara led the landing team down the ramp. Their boots struck the ground softly as though the plaza absorbed sound. Alara swept her scanner in a slow arc. No signs of organic life. No insects, no plants growing between the cracks. Nothing. Joran's eyes darted across the skyline. "Every window has light, but no one is home," Mara said quietly. "Let's find out why." They moved between towering buildings whose walls were covered in flowing designs, almost like writing. Each mark pulsed faintly as they passed. The streets were wide enough for hundreds of people. Yet silent, they turned a corner and entered a square. At its center stood a tall figure carved from stone. It wore robes and held a crystal sphere like the one they had found in the asteroid, but when Mara stepped closer, her breath caught. The face was hers down to the smallest detail. Others froze. Joran's hand hovered over his weapon. Ilara whispered, "That's impossible." Mara circled the statue slowly. The stone had aged, weathered with time, but the eyes still seemed alive in the sphere. The carved map glowed faintly, the same missing world marked in its center. She reached out and touched the stone. It was cold, but a faint hum began to pulse beneath her fingers. Alara's scanner spiked energy readings off the scale. Then the air shifted. Faint whispers brushed their ears like wind moving through empty halls. But there was no wind. The sound formed shapes, almost words, and Mara's name rose out of them. Clear and sharp, she spun around, but saw no one. The whispers came again, closer this time. Joran tightened his grip on his weapon. Mara said, "Hold your fire, we don't know what we're dealing with." They followed the sound down a narrow street where shadows pooled between tall buildings. The whispers grew louder until they were more like voices speaking. Just out of sight then, a shape stepped forward. It looked like a man, but his skin shimmered like water. The face was blurred, but his posture was familiar. He wore clothing that looked ancient, but somehow human. He spoke in a soft, echoing tone. "You should not have come here." His voice carried two layers, one near one. Farmara took a step forward. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head. "I am what is left. We are all that is left." Ilara frowned. "We." The figure raised a hand and more shapes appeared from the shadows. Dozens of them each, a shimmering copy of a human or alien. All with blurred faces they stood. Still, their movements too slow for normal life forms. Joran whispered to himself. Echoes. Mara looked back at Alara, who gave a small nod. "Maybe fragments of the people who once lived here." The first figure stepped closer. "The lost world exists between times. It has been here and not here for longer than your galaxy has existed. We hid ourselves to escape something that hunts worlds, a predator that eats the light. From suns the map you found is our warning, and our prison." Mara felt a cold weight in her stomach. Something about his words felt like truth. She asked, "Why show yourselves to us now?" The figure's blurred face shifted, as if struggling to form an expression. "Because the predator has found us again. And now it has found you before." She could respond. The ground trembled. A low sound rolled through the streets. like distant thunder, but the sky was clear. The echoes all turned their heads in the same direction. The figure's voice dropped into a near whisper. "It comes, hide yourselves." Now he turned and dissolved into a shimmer of light that faded into the air. The other echoes vanished just as quickly, leaving the crew alone in the golden twilight. The tremor grew stronger, windows rattled in their frames, lights in the towers flickered. The AI's voice crackled over Mara's calm, urgent tone. "Captain, energy readings spiking from the northern horizon. Magnitude suggests approach of an object larger than the city." Joran's voice was tight. "We need to get back to the ship now." They ran through the silent streets, their footsteps echoing too loudly in the emptiness. The golden light dimmed, further shadows lengthened unnaturally, as if the sun itself were being pulled away. When they reached the plaza, the air felt heavier. The ship's hull lights glowed in the gloom. Mara ordered everyone aboard, but as they approached the ramp, she glanced back toward the city. Something high above one of the towers had begun to glow, a deep red pulse that beat in rhythm with her own heart. For a moment she thought she saw movement inside the tower, a silhouette in the window. Watching her, she boarded quickly, and the ramp closed behind them. The ship's engines roared to life. Joran lifted them from the plaza, the city shrinking beneath them, but as they rose, Mara saw the red glow spreading across the rooftops like veins of molten metal. Ilara's scanner went wild, reading a spike in dimensional activity. The AI announced, "The world is phasing." The image of the city shimmered, flickered, and for a few seconds was replaced by a vast, barren desert. Then the city reappeared, but different towers twisted in new shapes, streets running in different patterns like they were in a different version of the same place. The tremor hit again stronger. The horizon rippled, as if the fabric of space was being torn. A vast shadow appeared, crawling over the land, blotting out what little light remained. Mara stared, unable to make out its shape, only its size. It was larger than mountains and moved with a terrible, slow certainty. Ilara's voice was barely above a whisper. "That's not a storm." Mara ordered full power. "Get us out now." The ship climbed higher into the golden clouds, the shadow below stretching toward them like a hand reaching through water just before they broke free into space. Mara glanced one last time at the world below and saw the red glow rise from the towers, forming a thin beam aimed straight at them. The beam didn't strike. Instead, it stopped just short of the hull, as if testing their defenses. The AI's voice came again, colder than before. "Captain, the Predator is aware of our presence." Mara gritted her teeth and ordered the ship to push for orbit, but deep down she knew they hadn't escaped anything yet. They had only stepped closer to whatever was hunting this world, and now it knew exactly who they were. The Andromeda Ascendant broke through the last layer of the planet's golden clouds and into the black of space, but no one on board relaxed. The shadow they had seen on the surface still lingered in their minds. Mara sat in her chair, staring at the sensors. The world spun slowly below them, its oceans green, its cities glowing faintly, yet the readings still claimed there were no living beings. Joran kept the ship in low-orbit engines, hot, ready to leave at the first sign of trouble, but trouble came faster than they expected. Without warning, the ship's lights flickered. The air grew colder, and the static returned to every speaker. The voices in the noise were clearer. Now they spoke in patterns, rising and falling as if calling to someone. Then the AI said something no one wanted to hear. "Boarding event detected." Mara's heart jumped. "Boarding from where we're in orbit." Ilara checked her console. No hatches opened. No hull breaches registered yet. The AI repeated, "Boarding event detected." Then a shape appeared at the far end of the command deck, tall and human in outline, but made of the same shimmering distortion they had seen in the city below. The figure's face was blurred, but its clothing was familiar, ancient but human, and in its hand it held a crystal sphere identical to the one in the asteroid. The voice it spoke with was layered like two people speaking at once. "You have brought the Predator with." Youth crew froze. No one moved. Joran's fingers hovered over the weapons controls, but the figure raised a hand. "Don't waste your weapons. You cannot harm what has already gone." Mara stood slowly. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head. "I am you, or what you will become." Mara's pulse quickened. "That makes no sense." The figure stepped closer, and the sphere it carried began to glow. "I am The echo of a life you have not yet lived. Before anyone could speak, more shapes emerged from the walls. Themselves stepping into the command deck as though the ship's metal skin were water, they were the Ascus, dozens of them, their blurred faces flickering between human alien and something else entirely. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide, their forms shifting every second. Alara whispered, "It's the people from the city." Mara nodded slowly, but here they looked sharper, more solid one. Of the echoes approached Joran, its movements slow, deliberate. When it spoke, its voice was almost kind. "You need to leave this world behind. Seal the map, destroy the coordinates. If the Predator finds its way out, it will not stop until your sons are gone." Mara stepped between them. "What is this Predator?" The echoes all turned to her at once, their blurred faces tilting like a flock of birds. "It is the Eater of Time," one of them said. "It moves between moments, consuming all that lives it has taken. Many worlds, many people. It will take this one too, if we fail to hide again." Again Mara asked again, "Why us? Why show yourselves to us?" The echoes seemed to hesitate, their shapes flickering more violently. "Because your kind has faced it before and survived," said the first figure. The others nodded, and in the silence that followed, the words hit Mara like a physical blow. "Faced it before, survived." She had no memory of such a thing, but the weight in the echo's voice told her it wasn't Alytha's ships. Deck shuddered, the lights dimmed further. The AI's voice cut through the tension. Energy surged, detected Predator proximity, increasing. The echoes reacted instantly, their forms stretching and pulling as if caught in invisible wind. The first figure turned to Mara. "Help us cloak the world again, or it will follow you out of here, and your people will be next." Joran muttered under his breath, "We should run," but Mara knew the choice wasn't so simple. If they fled and the Predator followed, the cost would be more than just this one planet. Mara asked, "What we have to do?" The figure held out the glowing sphere. "Take this into the heart of the city. Place it in the tower you saw from the plaza. It will restore the phase shield around the planet, but you must move quickly. The Predator grows stronger the longer it hunts before." She could answer. A sound rolled through the hull, deep and resonant, like the groan of a collapsing star. The crew's ears popped, pressure dropping slightly, though no breach showed on the instruments. Alara's eyes widened, its bending space around us. Joran shouted, "We have to move now." Mara turned back to the echoes, but half of them were already fading. The first figure's voice echoed in her mind, not through her ears. Hairy in moments, they were in the shuttle bay, suiting up for atmospheric drop. The sphere was warm in Mara's hands, almost like it had a heartbeat. Joran piloted the small craft through the thin upper clouds, the golden light swallowing them. Again, below, the city looked even more alien than before. Streets had shifted, buildings twisted into impossible shapes, as if the entire place had rearranged itself. While they were gone, the tower at the center still pulsed with red light as they landed on the same plaza they had used before. The whispers returned, faint at first, then swelling into full voices. The echoes lined the streets, watching silently as the crew moved toward the tower, their faces less blurred, here more defined. Some almost human. Mara gripped the sphere tighter, feeling it respond with stronger pulses. Alara scanned the surroundings. Readings are unstable. Time is fluctuating ahead. It could be walking through seconds or centuries. They reached the base of the tower. The entrance, a wide arch of black stone, the inside glowed with the same golden light as the sky above. The air was thick, almost heavy. The walls were carved with spirals and patterns that seemed to twist when looked at too long. Halfway up the wide stairwell, the floor trembled, dust falling from above, a low rumble growing louder. Mara looked back and saw a crack forming in the air itself at the base of the stairs. From that crack something emerged. It was not a creature in any form they recognized. It was a moving absence, a shifting distortion that made the space around it warp. Its edges shimmered like boiling water, and its core was darker than anything they had seen. It moved without touching the floor, bending the stone beneath it. Joran shouted, "Run," and they did, racing up the stairs as the distortion followed without hurry, as though it knew they could not escape. They reached the chamber at the top of the tower. The walls opened to the golden sky, the city stretching in all directions. In the center was a pedestal shaped to hold the sphere. Mara stepped forward, but the floor lurched. The distortion had reached the chamber doorway. its edges now sparking with red light. Alara's voice shook. "We don't have time." Mara slammed the sphere into place, the pedestal locked around it. Light erupted outward from the tower, sweeping across the city and beyond the horizon. The Predator let out a sound that was not sound but pressure and weight in the skull. Mara felt her vision blur. The light grew brighter until it was the only thing she could see. Then it snapped off, leaving the city silent again. The distortion was gone. Echoes began to appear around the chamber, their faces now calm. The first figure stepped forward. "You have bought us time, but the Predator is not destroyed, only delayed." Mara wiped sweat from her brow, her hands still trembling. "What happens now?" The figure looked out over the city. "We hide again, but this time the Predator has tasted your presence. It will seek you, and it will not forget." The echoes faded one by one, until only the empty chamber remained, the sphere now dark and cold. Even though she felt the weight of what she had heard, "Let's get back to the ship. We have work to do." Predator had been stopped for now, but it was still out there, and somewhere in the silence it was waiting for them to leave the Andromeda. Ascendant rose from the golden clouds, with the tower shrinking beneath them, the city now dim and silent again. But the sense of safety was an illusion. Mara could feel it in her bones. They had bought time, nothing more. The Predator was not gone. It was watching and waiting. Joran kept the engines running hot, while Elara monitored the sensors, her voice low. "Intense. I'm still reading distortions in the surrounding space, smaller than before but moving their tracking." Asmara didn't respond. She knew they wouldn't get far before something happened. The ship cleared the upper atmosphere, and the green and gold world fell away beneath them. The stars beyond seemed too bright, like they had been sharpened to a dangerous edge. Then the AI's voice came through in its calm, neutral tone. "Energy surge detected, incoming contact, multiple signatures." Joran muttered under his breath, "Here we go." The display lit up with dozens of red markers moving fast toward their position. Mara frowned there. Not the Predator. Alara's readings confirmed it. Different energy pattern, smaller, faster, moment. Later the shapes appeared from the darkness, sleek silver ships with curved hulls marked in alien symbols. Mara recognized them from files in the Alliance database they belonged to. The Veridin, a rival spacefaring race known for scavenging ancient technology. Their fleet had been shadowing human expeditions for years. One of the Veridin ships opened a channel. The voice was sharp and cold. "You have something that belongs to us. Hand over the map, and you will be allowed to leave alive." Mara's jaw tightened. "And if we don't," the Veridin captain's voice did not change, "then you will not leave it all before." Mara could answer. The AI interrupted. "Predator signature detected. Distance closing rapidly." The Veridin ships hesitated their formations. Shifting, the Veridin captain came back on the channel. "Your Predator is here, human. You led it to us." "Ah." Mara didn't reply. She was already giving orders. Evasive maneuvers, power to shields. Joran swung the ship into a sharp climb, engines roaring. The Veridin ships scattered, some turning toward the Predator signature as if they thought they could fight it, others moving to block the Ascendant's path. Then the Predator arrived. It did not come like other ships. There was no jump flash, no energy. Trail one moment, space was empty the next. It was there, a mass of shifting distortion larger than any vessel it swallowed. Light bent the stars around it into spirals. Its edges crawled like liquid shadow. The first Veridin ships to face it opened. Fire beams of energy tearing across the void. The attacks hit the Predator, but instead of damage, the distortion absorbed them, the energy vanishing as though it had been swallowed whole a moment later. The Veridin ship that fired first was simply gone. No explosion, no debris, just erased from existence. The Veridin fleet broke apart in panic. Some tried to flee, others kept firing desperately. Mara felt the weight of the Predator's presence even through the ship's hull. Her vision blurred. For a moment, her thoughts slowed. She shook her head hard to clear it. Elara shouted, "It's affecting our neural patterns. Keep focus." Mara ordered the AI to plot a course away from the Predator. The AI replied, "Negative Predator proximity prevents. Jump capability recommended, action unknown." The Predator moved toward them, slow, deliberate, as though certain they could not escape. Then the map in the ship's database activated without being touched, its glowing lines rearranged into a new pattern. Showing a path through folded space, a hidden escape route, Alara stared at it. That's impossible. It's showing us a way out. Mara didn't trust it completely, but it was the only option. Prepare for folded space transit. As Joran followed the course, the Predator shifted its focus. Toward them, the distortions around its edges stretched like reaching arms. The hull groaned under invisible pressure alarms. Blared in every section, then the AI's voice came again. Boarding event detected. Mara's blood went cold. The last time they had heard those words, it had been the echoes, but this time the lights dimmed into red emergency glow and the air grew heavy. With heat, a figure appeared in the command deck, but it was not an echo. It was one of her crew, Lysa from engineering, but her eyes were pure black, her skin pale, and her movements too smooth when she spoke. It was not her voice, but something deeper layered and ancient. I remember you humans. I remember when you found me before the voice was calm, almost gentle, but each word felt like it weighed a ton. Mara stepped forward, fighting the instinct to draw her weapon. Lysa's mouth curled into a smile. You tried to hide from me, but you can't hide forever, not from what lives. Between the stars, Alara whispered, it's using her body to communicate. The black-eyed Lysa tilted her head. I like this one. She's strong, but she will break, and when she does, I will wear her forever, Joran snapped. We're not letting that happen. He moved toward her, but without touching him, she threw him backward into the wall, with enough force to dent the metal the Predator's voice through. Lysa looked back to Mara. You've already lost, Captain. You just don't know it yet. The ship shuddered. The folded space route opening ahead, a tunnel of twisting light. Mara shouted to Joran to get them inside the infected. Lysa turned to watch it, and for the first time her smile faded. The Predator's voice hissed, no. Mara saw her chance. She signaled Ilara, and together they triggered a localized containment field around Lysa. The field shimmered, locking her in place. Her black eyes glared pure hate before the voice faded, and she collapsed unconscious. The Ascendant plunged into the folded space. Corridor stars and shadows twisting in impossible shapes outside the Predator did not follow, but Mara knew it wasn't gone. It had let them go because it wanted to, not because they had escaped the AI. Confirmed Predator signature lost. Mara sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. Alara checked Lysa in the medbay. She's alive, but readings show traces of something in her neural pathways, something we can't remove. Mara looked at the folded space path ahead, the map still glowing faintly. In the display, the echoes had warned them the Predator would not forget now it had touched one of her crew. It would have a way to find them. Again she glanced at the image of the green and gold world fading behind them and wondered how long before the Predator returned to finish what it started, and whether they would be ready when it did. The folded space, twisting and shimmering in colors that hurt the eyes to look at, the Andromeda Ascendant glided through it without a sound, but every person aboard felt the same thing, a quiet pressure in the back of their minds, like a thought they could not name. Mara sat forward in her chair, watching the shifting walls of light. She had been through folded space before, but never like this. This route from the star map felt alive. The lights outside pulsed in time with her heart beating. The medbay Lysa lay on a cot, her skin pale, her breathing steady, but too slow. The black in her eyes had faded, yet something lingered in the way she twitched, as if reacting to things no one else could see. Alara stood beside her, scanner in hand. Readings are strange, she said quietly. There's activity deep in her brain patterns that don't match human neural signals. Joran leaned against the wall, arms crossed. So you're saying it's still in her? Alara nodded. Not fully, but enough, and it's fighting. The ship's AI interrupted. Predator signature, not detected, but residual energy present in engineering. Mara's head snapped up. In engineering, she repeated. The AI confirmed, we are not alone. Joran grabbed a sidearm, and Mara motioned for Alara to stay with Lysa. They moved through the corridors, the lights dimming slightly as they walked. The hum of the engines seemed louder, more uneven by the time they reached engineering. The air was warmer, and the faint smell of ozone filled the room. Something moved between the machines, a flicker of shadow too fast to track. Mara raised her weapon. Show yourself. The shadow froze, then slowly took shape. At first it looked like a human silhouette, then it stretched, growing taller. The details sharpening into a twisted version of Lysa, her face there but wronged her eyes, pools of darkness, her mouth curling into a smirk. The voice that came out was the Predator's. "You ran, but I'm still here," Mara kept her weapon steady. "How did you get here?" the shadow. Lysa tilted her head. "You invited me. You carried me in your friend's mind. You can't trap me in a body. Forever, I am not a thing. I am a hunger." Joran's finger hovered near the trigger, but Mara lifted her hand. "No shooting won't work," the shadow. Lysa stepped closer, each movement slightly jerky like a puppet learning to walk. "You've seen my work before, Captain, in another life, in another time." Mara's brow furrowed. She wanted to ask what that meant, but deep down she feared she already knew. The AI's voice came again. Abnormal energy buildup detected in folded space corridor. Possible instability. Joran swore under his breath. "We don't need that right now." The shadow. Lisa's smirk widened. "Oh yes, you do. Instability will bring us together." "I will peel away this corridor and watch you fall into the dark with me," Mara stepped closer, voice low. "What do you want from us?" The shadow's head twitched. "I want what I always want to feed, to erase, to end the noise of living things. You have survived me once, but you will not again." The shadow lunged forward and dissolved into a stream of black mist that vanished into the walls. The lights flickered. The AI announced system breach containment failing in multiple sectors. Mara ordered seal all bulkheads, reroute power to internal defenses, but the ship shuddered hard, throwing her against the console, the folded space walls. Outside, warped, bending in unnatural ways, streaks of darkness spreading through the light corridor. Joran's crying to keep them steady. Alara's voice crackled over. "Come, Captain. I say's awake, and she's not herself." Mara told her to hold position in the medbay. Lysa sat up, her movements stiff, her eyes flickering between normal and black. She looked at Alara and smiled. In a way that didn't belong to her, the Predator's voice came from her mouth again. "We are so close, Captain. Almost home." Mara ran for the medbay. Joran following, they arrived to see Lysa standing in the middle of the room, the medical instruments around her vibrating. She lifted a hand, and the walls seemed to ripple, as if they were made of liquid. Mara raised her weapon again, but Lysa just tilted her head. "You can't kill me without killing her," and Alara was backing toward the far wall, her scanner shaking in her hand. The readings are spiking. She's channeling energy from the folded space corridor into herself. Mara stepped forward, her voice hard. "What happens if you pull too much?" The Predator in Lysa's mouth curved into a wider grin. "Then the corridor breaks, and we all drop into the places between places. You call them void zones. I call them home."
"Oh."
Joran moved to flank her, but she saw him coming without even looking, and he was slammed into the wall by invisible force. The ship's AI interrupted. Folded space corridor collapsing. Recommend immediate ejection into normal space. Mara knew that would mean they'd come out somewhere completely unknown, maybe even inside a star, but staying meant letting the Predator tear the corridor apart. She made the call. "Do it now." The stars outside blinked into view as they burst from folded space. The sudden shift threw everyone to the floor. Alarms wailed, the ship's hull groaning as if it were about to tear apart. Lysa collapsed unconscious again, the black fading from her eyes. But the AI confirmed Predator presence, still detected, faint but real. Mara caught her breath and looked out the viewport. They were in empty space. No planets, no stations, only a single dim red star in the distance. Alara joined her, scanning the surroundings. Nothing here, no signals, no debris. It's like this system doesn't exist on any chart. Mara frowned. "Then where are we?" the AI replied. "Unknown location, but coordinates suggest extreme temporal displacement." Joran rubbed his head. "Temporal displacement? You mean we've gone through time?" The AI confirmed. "Affirmative estimate. Several thousand years." Mara felt the weight of that settle over her. This wasn't just a wrong turn. They were in a different era. The Predator had not only followed them, it had pulled them out of their own time. She looked toward the medbay door where Lysa lay unconscious and knew the thing inside. It wasn't finished yet. And somewhere in this silent, uncharted system, it was waiting for its moment to take control again. The red star burned faintly in the distance, casting the Andromeda Ascendant in a dim, bloody light, the crew moved quietly through the ship, no one speaking louder than a whisper, as if afraid the sound would draw something from the dark. Mara sat in the command chair, staring at the empty space around them, her mind trying to grasp the truth. They had been thrown thousands of years into the past or future. There was no way to tell and no one to ask. The AI's voice was calm, but carried a note of strain. Environmental scans complete, no inhabited worlds detected, no artificial signals. Drone stood at the navigation console, his hands moving slowly over the controls. Nothing here, Captain. No planets worth landing on. No signs of life, except that red dwarf. Lara was at the science station. Her eyes locked on her screen. Readings from the star are strange. It's older than it should be, and its light has a strange pulse every few minutes, like it's not stable. Mara frowned. A pulsing star could mean something artificial was interfering, but she kept that thought to herself for now. In the medbay, Lysa stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around, confusion in her face, but Mara had seen that act before. She was out of her chair and moving toward the medbay before anyone could stop her. Joran followed. Lysa was sitting upright, her breathing slow. She looked at Mara with wide, innocent eyes. Captain, what happened? Where are we? Mara didn't answer. Instead, she motioned for Alara to bring the scanner. The results appeared, and Mara's worst fear was confirmed. The abnormal patterns in Lysa's brain were still there, even stronger than before. The Predator's voice came through without warning, cold and smooth. You keep thinking you can wait me out. You can't. Mara leaned forward, her voice low. You brought us here? Why? The voice laughed, soft and slow. You think I planned this? I did not, but I like it. There is something here, something older than me, something I want. Mara's stomach tightened. What could be older than the Predator? The voice in Lysa's mouth smiled. The first fire, the thing that taught the stars to burn. The ship's AI interrupted. New reading detected deep object near red dwarf, possible artificial origin. Mara ordered the ship to approach slowly. The red light outside grew brighter as they neared the star. The pulsing rhythm became more obvious every few minutes. The light dimmed, then flared again like a heartbeat. Joran adjusted their course until the scanners locked on to something vast orbiting close to the star. A structure bigger than a moon. Its surface, covered in hexagonal plates. Alara's voice was filled with awe. It's a construct, and it's ancient, older than any recorded civilization. The plates shifted slowly, like they were breathing. The Predator's voice through. Lysa hissed, I know this place. It is a cage, but not for me. The ship's up faint transmissions from the construct, old signals that repeated endlessly in a language no one recognized. Mara ordered the AI to attempt translation, but it warned the process could take hours. As they drifted closer, the plates on the construct began to move faster, forming an opening large enough for the Ascendant to enter. Joran's hands tightened on the controls. We're not really going inside that thing, are we? Mara's voice was steady. We don't have a choice if this place is a cage. I want to know what it's holding. They eased the ship through the opening and into a vast hollow space lit by the red star's glow, filtering in through thin gaps in the walls. Inside floated dozens of smaller objects, each shaped like a spearhead of black metal suspended in place without moving. Jalara scanned them. Each one is radiating a containment field, but I don't know what's inside. Joran muttered. This place feels wrong. Mara felt it. To the air on the ship seemed heavier, the walls of the construct humming faintly, as if aware of their presence. Then, without warning, the lights on the ship flickered, and the AI's voice broke up, warning unknown signal breaching systems. Before it could finish, every console went dark. For a heartbeat, then came back online. In the medbay, Lysa screamed, her voice layered with the Predator's and something else deeper, older. Lara ran to check on her, but stopped when she saw the change. Lysa's eyes were no longer black, but burning, red light spilling out in thin lines across her face. The Predator's voice was gone, replaced by one that sounded like fire and stone. You have brought me a path back to the stars. Mara stepped forward. Who are you? The voice laughed. I am the first fire, the spark that lit the void. The Predator tried to escape me, and now you have delivered it back into my reach. Mara realized the cage wasn't meant for the Predator at all. It was meant for this thing. And the Predator had fled across space, in time to stay away from it, The red light in Lisa's eyes grew brighter at the ships. AI reported rising energy levels across the construct. Structural shifts detected the hexagonal plates. Outside were moving again, closing the opening they had. Entered through Joran swore. We're trapped, the red voice in Lisa's mouth smiled. You cannot leave until I am free. The Predator's voice suddenly returned weak. But sharp over the come, Captain. You don't understand. If it escapes, it will burn. Everything, every star, every world. Mara had no reason to trust the Predator, but the fear in its voice was real. The construct began to vibrate the spearhead. Objects glowing brighter as if straining to hold something, and Mara ordered Alara to focus. Scans on the center of the construct. The results showed a massive energy core wrapped in layers of containment fields. If those fields fail, the release would be catastrophic. The red voice laughed again. You cannot stop the first fire. You can only be the first to burn the ship's AI. Interrupted. Incoming energy surge. 40 seconds to release. Mara turned to Joran. Get us out now, he shouted. The exit is closing too fast. Mara looked at the glowing spearheads, then at the map still in there. Database and idea forming. We can overload one containment field to cause a chain reaction. Maybe it will collapse the whole structure before it fully opens. Lara's eyes widened. That's a maybe that will kill us. Mara nodded, but staying will kill everything. Joran spun the ship toward one of the glowing spearheads. Alara began feeding power to the forward weapons. The Predator's voice hissed. Do it, human, but be quick! The red voice screamed in rage, Lisa's body convulsing as if torn between the two. Forces the weapons fired, striking the containment field in a blinding flash. The spearhead shattered, sending a ripple through the entire construct. The plates outside shuddered, slowing their movement. The glow from the core faltered. Mara shouted. Again Joran hit the engines. The opening ahead began to widen just enough for the ship to slip through. Blasted out into open space. Just as the construct behind them convulsed and collapsed inward, the red star pulsed one last time before dimming. To a steady glow, the Predator's voice whispered faintly, You delayed it, but it will return. Mara sat back in her chair, staring at the shrinking shape of the construct on the view screen. Her hands shaking, she knew both forces were still out there. Somewhere, the Predator and the first fire, and now both had seen her. Faced the Andromeda Ascendant, drifted in the cold space beyond the dying red star. The crew silent as they stared at the construct, shrinking into the distance. The plates that once moved like breathing now hung still broken. The light from the star barely reached them, giving the ship a dim, lifeless glow. Mara sat in the command chair, her mind heavy with the knowledge of what they had just escaped, but she could not shake the truth that they had only delayed something far worse. Joran kept the engines running low power, conserving fuel while his eyes stayed locked on the sensors. Alara worked at the science console, trying to track any trace of the Predator or the first fire, but there was nothing. The readings were clean, empty, as if space itself had scrubbed away their presence in. The medbay Lisa lay unconscious again, her breathing slow, her face calm, but Mara knew better. The Predator was still inside her somewhere. Waiting. The first fire's red glow had vanished from her eyes, but the memory of its voice lingered in the room like heat after a blaze. Lara had placed containment fields around the bed and scanners to alert them if her brain patterns spiked. But even she admitted it was only a precaution against something they barely understood. The AI spoke, breaking the quiet, possible safe system detected. 8 light years from current position, one planet with breathable atmosphere, low radiation, no known settlements. Joran glanced at Mara. We could head there and regroup. Get repairs done, Mara thought for a long moment, then nodded, set course. Low power, keep scans running, full sweep for any anomalies. The journey was tense-folded, space was no longer an option, too unstable after their encounter with the construct. So they traveled through normal space. Days passed with no word from the Predator, but the silence was its own kind of threat. Every shadow in the corridors felt too deep, every flicker of light too sharp, as if reality itself had been stretched thin. The third day, the AI reported faint energy signature ahead, not matching local star patterns. Joran frowned. That's odd. It's like a ship, but not one of ours. They followed the signal until a shape emerged from the black. A derelict vessel drifting without lights, its hull scarred and pitted from age. Mara ordered a cautious approach. Scanners showed no life signs, but there was faint residual power deep inside Joran. Muttered, "This thing is ancient Elara. Studied the readings, it's not just old, it's older than human. Spaceflight may be older than human civilization." They docked with the derelict, the air inside, thin but breathable corridors stretched out in all. Directions lined with strange symbols carved into the walls, the material of the ship seemed to shift subtly under the light, as if it remembered being something else. Mara led the way, Joran covering their rear, Elara taking scans the deeper they went. The more they saw the same repeating symbol, a circle of jagged lines like a burning sun in the central chamber. They found a massive device standing as tall as the room itself. It pulsed faintly, with a light that was neither red nor black. But something in between. The AI's voice came through. "There comes signal analysis complete. Symbol matches fragment from ancient data files related to First Fire mythology." Joran's voice was tight, so this thing belonged to whatever built that construct. Elara moved closer, scanning the device. "It's a beacon, but it's not broadcasting." Now Mara asked, "What happens if it does?" Elara hesitated, then said it might call the first fire here, or warn it of something or someone before Mara could decide what. To-do Lysa's voice came over the Captain. "You should see this." They froze. Lysa was supposed to be in the medbay restrained. Mara ordered her to report, but the voice laughed low and dark. "Not Lysa's voice. The Predators, I told you I would." "Wait, but you brought me a gift. You always bring me gifts." The device in the room began to glow brighter, reacting to the Predator's presence. Mara swore, ordering Joran and Elara back to the ship, but the door behind them sealed the walls around, the chamber shifting until they were smooth and featureless. The Predator's voice filled the room through Lysa's mouth. "Though she was not there, the first fire will hear this beacon. It will come, and when it does, there will be no cage this time." Mara shouted over the voice, "Why would you want it here? It will destroy you too." The Predator laughed, "Maybe, but first it will burn you, and that is enough for Mitha." Device surged with light, filling the chamber with heat. The symbols on the walls flared as if alive. Elara frantically tried to interface with it, but her scanner overloaded and died. Joran pulled his sidearm, but firing at the device seemed useless. The AI's voice came through, weak and distorted. "Breach in docking connection." Unable to maintain link, Mara realized the only chance was to destroy the beacon before it sent its signal. She told Joran to plant explosives, the kind they carried for asteroid mining. They worked fast, attaching the charges, while Elara rerouted power from her dead scanner to create a pulse disruptor. If they timed it right, the disruptor could destabilize the beacon just as the explosives went off, causing it to collapse inward instead of blasting outward. Joran set the last charge. Mara counted down in her head. 3 to 1, they detonated. The disruptor fired at the same instant. The beacon screamed in a sound that wasn't sound. Light folded in on itself, the walls shuddered, and then everything went dark. When Mara opened her eyes, they were back in the docking tunnel, the derelict floating silent behind them. The connection to the beacon severed. The AI confirmed no signal detected, no energy reading. Joran exhaled, and Elara slumped against the wall, but Mara knew this wasn't the end. Destroying the beacon might have prevented the first fire from coming now, but there were likely more beacons, more constructs, more cages scattered across the star's back. On the bridge, Mara looked at the star map, their position marked in the middle of empty space. Joran asked where to next. She stared at Lysa's still form on the medbay monitor, the Predator quiet. "But present, we find the rest of these things before they find each other?" Elara asked. "And if they already have?" Mara didn't answer, her eyes fixed on the dark ahead, because deep down she knew the Predator was right about one thing. Sooner or later the first fire would return, and when it did, the whole galaxy would burn unless they stopped it first.